Hey, Than Merrill here. I'm the founder and CEO of Fortune Builders and CT Homes and the star of A&E's Flip This House. I'm excited to share with you something in this video that's going to help you be more successful as a real estate investor. You see, I've been investing in real estate for the past 14 years. And during that time frame, I've closed over 1,000 deals and built a large portfolio of rental properties. I've also had the pleasure of helping thousands of real estate entrepreneurs like yourself build successful real estate investing businesses through our coaching and consulting programs. Because I'm a mentor to so many successful real estate investors around the country, I'm often interviewed and asked to speak at wealth management and investment conferences about what it takes to become a successful real estate investor. So because it's such a common question, I decided to create this 4-part video training series to help you understand the big picture of what it takes to thrive in real estate today. More specifically, I'm going to discuss the exact steps I would take if I were in your shoes right now, so I can help you reach your financial goals as quickly as possible. You see, I've had a lot of success as a real estate investor, and through a lot of strategic hard work, I've created a business model that produces very consistent and profitable results, not only for me and my business, but also for our investor students who utilize, leverage the processes, the systems, and the business model that we've created. Now, this journey hasn't been perfect because I've also made a lot of mistakes, especially early on in my career. And that's why I wanted to create these videos, because I want to help you avoid some of those costly, possibly even catastrophic mistakes you can make early on in your career as a real estate investor. The best part is it doesn't matter whether you're planning on investing part-time or full-time. Likewise, what you learn in these videos will help you whether you're brand new or you've been investing in real estate for 20 plus years. So the first thing you probably want to know is, why is real estate the best asset class to invest in and build long-term wealth? We all know, or we've met people who have changed their lives financially through real estate. So we know it works, but the question remains, why? And why does it work so well? Well, my passion in life is studying finance. I know it sounds completely dorky, but that's exactly what I love. I absolutely love learning and investing and helping other people improve their finances. I know how people's overall lives improve when they take care of the one single most important thing in their life, which is their personal finances. So why is it then that so many people in this country struggle financially? Why is it that 95 out of 100 people in this country work literally 20, 30, 40, 50 plus years of their lives and still aren't prepared for retirement at age 65? Well, the reason is that most people out there don't study statistics and trends. You see, in high school, we're taught to work hard and get into a good college. And in college, we're taught to work hard so we can go out there and get a good job. Then throughout our working careers, we're taught and encouraged to save money instead of being taught how to invest. Now, what happens is a certain percentage of people out there who start out working a job realize that having a job is not going to get them to their financial goals. So what do these people do? Well, they decide they're going to go out there and work for themselves, and they're going to become self-employed. They decide to become real estate agents, mortgage brokers, sell insurance, or start their own business in their expertise or profession. And at first it's exciting, but pretty soon most people realize they aren't getting much further ahead financially and essentially have just bought themselves another job. They start to realize that they're working way too hard, trading their time for money, and that the only way to make more money is to trade more of their time they just don't have. You see, people like this are capped on how much they can earn because they only have 24 hours in a day. And they fall victim to what I call the technician trap. Maybe you can relate to what I'm talking about, and you've experienced this like I have. You see, the problem is what we've been taught growing up and in school doesn't work for most people. And having a job or being self-employed only gets us so far. You see, I realized this many years ago, and I started asking myself, well, heck, what do the wealthiest and most successful people in this country do differently? What do they know that everybody else doesn't? Well, what I discovered changed my life forever, and it has the power to change yours as well. The first thing I discovered is that 95% of the people in this country either have a job or are self-employed. 95%. Yet these people only control a measly 5% of the wealth. That means that the 5% of people in this country control 95% of the wealth. That's insane. Think about that for a second. So I asked myself, how did the 5% of people who control so much wealth make their money? And what did they learn and do differently than the 95% of people who have either a job or are self-employed? Well, as I did my research, I made a couple key discoveries. First, I discovered that very few of these people who controlled 95% of the wealth had jobs. Instead of having jobs, the overwhelming majority of wealthiest people out there owned businesses that were passive in nature, that helped create their wealth, or they invested their way to wealth, and many did both. You see, instead of trading time for money at a job, these people learned how to invest and acquire assets that produce passive monthly income much greater than their expenses. These people we call investors. Investors don't trade time for money at a job or sell their time for money like a self-employed individual, say a lawyer, a real estate agent, or a chiropractor. Instead, their wealth was created by learning how to buy assets that produce income, and they let their assets do the work instead of them. Another key difference that I realized about the 5% is that the majority of them owned businesses. However, their businesses look very different from most self-employed technicians who are trading or selling their personal time for money. You see, the wealthiest people took a different approach and had a business that didn't require a lot of their personal time. That's a key difference. The reason their businesses don't require a lot of time is because they spent the time to get educated early on in their career, in their industry, and then they learned how to set up their business in such a way that it wasn't dependent on their personal time. What they did is they put systems into place, and essentially they built a systems-dependent business. Because these people were strategic and put systems in place and put other people in place to do the work, they're not capped by only having 24 hours of personal time in a day. What they do is they leverage other people's time. And that's what allows them to grow their wealth exponentially. So what does this mean for you? Well, you're smart and you definitely realize that the best way to improve your finances is to learn how to invest and to have a business, like a real estate investing business, that produces income for you. But how you set that business up is critical, and the systems you put in place over the course of the next few months are what's going to make or break your business. And it's either going to set you on the path of the 95%, or it's going to set you on the path of the 5% wealthiest individuals out there who have a systems-dependent business. You see, when you start a business, there are really only two paths you can take. For example, let's say there's a guy out there named Joe, and Joe wants to start a deli. And so he starts Joe's Deli. Well, chances are Joe, like most people out there who just try to wing things without getting educated first, are going to end up struggling trying to figure out everything on their own. Now, if you study statistics, the majority of businesses fail in the first year. And that's because Joe's just winging it. Well, let's say Joe did survive. If he did survive, a lot of times his business would not be that sexy of a business. In fact, he'd probably end up working in his business long hours as a technician, doing almost everything himself. Essentially, Joe ended up just buying himself a job. So what's a better approach and the other path? Well, let's say Sally came along and she decided she also wanted to get into the deli business. However, Sally, she thinks more like an entrepreneur instead of a technician. And she decides she's first going to get educated in the deli business, in the industry, and then instead of starting from scratch, she decides to invest in a Subway franchise. You see, Sally realized it'd be much smarter and easier to leverage a proven system for running a deli. Sally decided to leverage someone else's hard work and years of expertise figuring it out, and years of building proven systems and operating procedures, because everything has already been figured out for Sally. And then she scales the business to 10 Subways. Well, who do you think ultimately does better financially? Sally or Joe? And between the two of them, which one do you think has more time to spend with their family or their spouse? And who do you think has to work less? And ultimately, who gets more joy and fulfillment out of everything life has to offer? You're exactly right. It's Sally. And what did she do? She just made a smarter decision from day one. You see, the consequences of Joe's decisions and his approach are real. Trying to wing things in a business leads to serious financial consequences, financial problems. It can lead to marital problems. It can lead to family problems. And ultimately, working too much creates tremendous stress, which can lead to health problems. Folks, this is the reality. And ultimately, life is too short to not enjoy as much of life as you possibly can. Sally, she chose the right path. And Joe, he chose the wrong one. Well, when it comes to starting a real estate investing business, it's no different. Ultimately, you have two paths that you can take. Some people choose to wing it, like Joe, and ultimately most fail because they make significant and very costly mistakes. And for those who do survive with this approach, the majority of them never build significant wealth or real estate holdings because they get stuck in the technician trap, doing all the work themselves. However, the other approach is to follow a proven path and model a systems-dependent business that already works. This is how I can ultimately help you and change the entire direction of your life, because I want to give you the opportunity to model my business. And I'll tell you more about how you can do that in just a minute. But first, I want to show you, and I want you to understand what it means to have a systems-dependent real estate business. So what exactly is a system? Well, a system simply helps you get a specific business process done in less time. In real estate, we have many different business processes or things that we do in order to make money and grow our business. We prospect and we market to find good deals. We have a process for how we analyze and perform due diligence on properties. We have a process for raising money from other people to finance the deals that we do. We have a process for finding good contractors and building a good team. We have a process for managing the construction without doing all of the work ourselves. We have a process for managing properties and tenants that we keep as rentals. And ultimately, we also have a process for selling properties if we decide to flip them. The key to building an automated system is to get each of these processes working together in one seamless system. And the work gets done in a predictable and profitable fashion without you having to do everything yourself. That's exactly what I've done in my business over the past 14 years. First of all, every time we try something and get it to work, let's say a new marketing campaign that resulted in several deals, we document it first. We break that process down into a series of very logical, small, and easy to follow steps. Then what we do is we create templates, flowcharts, and step-by-step checklists that anyone can follow. Now, once we have the flowchart done, the checklist created, what we do is we take all those documents and we create what we call a standard operating procedures manual. And then what we do is we hand that manual off to somebody who's going to do the actual work. Now, the next thing we do is we create key performance indicators to measure and monitor that person's progress and properly manage them. Then we simply repeat this process throughout our entire business, documenting the processes that work, creating systems, delegating those systems to other people so that other people are literally running our business. So just picture and imagine for a second. you not having to do all the work. You moving from being a technician who's doing all the work yourself to just managing other people. And then ultimately what we do next is we plug somebody else in to manage everybody else. And that's when you start to enjoy the fruits of your labor. And isn't that why we created a business in the first place? That's when you become a true entrepreneur and business owner. And before you know it, you're only spending a few hours a week just checking in on your business. That's exactly what I want for you. This is the secret that the wealthiest individuals in the world have figured out. And it's exactly how I've gotten my business to where it's at today. You see, right now in my office, we're able to manage between 25 to 40 rehab projects at once. And this is also how we continue to build our rental portfolio of properties each and every month. You name it, we've created a system around it, and we've put someone else in place to operate the system. And over the next few days, I'm gonna walk you through some of these systems. I'm gonna give you the opportunity to take all of my systems and start using them yourself. Looking ahead a few months or a few years from now, there's gonna be a specific moment when you'll know whether or not you have a systems-dependent business. This is something one of my mentors taught me years ago. And by the way, when I look at my success in real estate, I know I wouldn't be where I am today had I not sought out mentors early on in my career. You see, my life has been blessed by other people who've helped shape my thinking. And I give all credit to them because of what they taught me. Early on in my investing career, one of my mentors told me, Than, if you're gonna start a business, the most important thing that you're gonna wanna do is build a business as if you're gonna sell it. He explained to me that this means you're building a systems-dependent business, not a you-dependent business. Because that means you can actually step away from all the day-to-day tasks and the business still runs without you. So I asked him, how do you know when you have a systems-dependent business? And he said, Than, here's the litmus test. If you and your family were to go on vacation for 3 months to travel the world, would your real estate business continue to prosper, function, and make money while you were gone? If the answer is no, then you don't have a systems-dependent business. If you can't walk away from your work for an extended period of time without having to worry about generating income or paying bills, then it's time to make a change. And look, if you're in that position right now, it's okay. That's totally normal. That's exactly where I started. Heck, it took a few years for me to have a systems-dependent business. Until then, it was a fan-dependent business. In fact, this is what my business looked like when I started. I had to wear every hat, and I know a lot of you can relate to that feeling. I'm sure you know what it feels like to do everything yourself at work or in a business. I'm sure you know what it feels like when you come home at the end of the day and say, what the heck am I doing? I'm working too hard to be where I'm presently at. Well, over the next few days, I'm going to show you how much fun and what your life could look like by going on this real estate journey with me and by implementing my real estate entrepreneurial operating systems over the course of the next 12 to 24 months. Imagine the feeling of having a business that you know produces consistent, predictable, and profitable results. And instead of building someone else's dream, you're working and building your own dream. Just imagine being able to generate income, even when you're traveling for long periods of time, because you've acquired investment properties that pay you every single month. Even when you're spending time with your family, even when you're pursuing your passions and your purpose, doing the things that you'd rather be doing with your time here on this earth. I imagine that's why you started learning about real estate in the first place anyway. Not only for the financial freedom, but for what that financial freedom would allow you to do. You see, too many real estate investors out there are their business. They're doing their marketing, they're the ones calling agents, they're the ones speaking with sellers, they're the ones doing the due diligence, they're raising money, they're managing the contractors, they're managing the tenants, they're everything, the chef, the baker, and the candlestick maker. So we want to solve this problem right now. You want to solve this problem before it eats away at your health, your relationship, and your finances. And ultimately, what's going to be most important to your success is to find a coach or a mentor who has already achieved the results you want and learn from them and just model what they've done. Over the next few days, I'm going to give you the opportunity to learn about that as well. For now though, listen to me closely. If you're tired of working so hard and you know there's more for your life, if you have the desire to improve your financial position and you're sincere and honest about making a positive change in your life, then I know I can help you get there. I've done it. My team and I, for literally 14 years, have been testing, tweaking, figuring out what works and what doesn't work. And we put in tens of thousands of hours building a business model that I know can get you to your goals faster and cut years off your learning curve. I know it'll give you a massive competitive advantage over other investors in your area. Now, I also know that sometimes there's people out there that say, I'm not sure I have enough time to do this. Well, the reality is the majority of our most successful students, and I'm going to introduce you to a few of them over the course of the next few days, well, most of them started out working with us part-time. And if you're already full-time in the business, just imagine how much faster you'll see positive results using our systems and business model. But like I said, building a business does take work, and there's no such thing as an overnight success. See, what we do with our coaching and consulting students is literally hand them a playbook to build a successful real estate investing business. Let me give you a comparison. Imagine for a second that you had to lead an NFL team to a Super Bowl. What would give you a better chance to win? Starting out the preseason without a playbook or a team of coaches to guide you? Well, you'd be relegated to winging it and having to literally draw plays up in the dirt against significant competition. Or would you rather have a proven playbook from a championship team handed to you along with coaches to help guide you and stand by your side to give you strategic direction along the way? What would give your business a better chance of long-term sustainable success? You see, we give our coaching and consulting clients the playbook and the proven action steps they need to take in order to position themselves to win out in every obstacle they might encounter on their journey to success. That's why there's no guesswork involved in the process. There's no painful trial and error that makes you question whether or not real estate is right for you. I mean, just imagine what it would cost you financially if you just tried to wing it as an investor without a system, just trying to compete by drawing your playbook up in the dirt. One thing I can guarantee you is that there is risk in real estate. And when someone decides to wing it, they'll make costly and even catastrophic financial mistakes. And it doesn't have to be like that. I know that I can help you reach your highest potential and use real estate to draw as much as you possibly can out of life. The reason I know this is because I've done it, and I've helped thousands of other people do it as well. So stay tuned. I'm going to share with you the system that we use to fund real estate deals using other people's money. You see, one misconception a lot of people out there think is that you need money to invest in real estate. Well, the truth is you do need money, but it doesn't have to be your money. I'm going to show you how to raise money for your first deal or your next deal, and how I've been able to raise millions of dollars over the years to acquire my properties. Now, later in the third video in this series, I'm going to show you a few of our best performing marketing campaigns that we've used for years to find deals below market value. And you'll notice as you're watching these videos and learning from these videos that each one of our systems stacks on top of each other to create a streamlined real estate investing business, one that runs smoothly with or without your involvement. Talk to you soon in the next video. Hey, Than Merrill here, and welcome to part 2 of our 4-part Quick Start training that shows you how to start and grow a profitable real estate investing business quickly. Now, I have a very important question for you. How would it feel if right now you had all the funding you needed to buy any good investment property that came your way? Would it give you a sense of confidence? Would it help you build a long-term sustainable business? And would it allow you to move forward knowing that you had more control over your financial future? I imagine it would. Well, in today's video, I'm going to share with you a few strategies to help show you the path you'll take to raise other people's money for your future real estate deals. This will be an overview of a very detailed and highly refined process that I've used for 14 years. Now, I also know it's important to have confidence in your teachers. Well, in my career, my business partners and I have raised over $100 million from other people. We've raised money for residential deals, for new construction, for commercial properties. I've also helped our students raise hundreds of millions of dollars, so I know what I'm about to share with you works. Now, before we dive into these steps, it's important to share a very important concept with you regarding utilizing leverage and borrowing money that one of my mentors shared with me years ago. You see, wealthy people borrow their way to wealth. What I've found is that the wealthiest real estate investors have all borrowed millions and millions of dollars to acquire assets. Thus, they're borrowing their way to wealth, meaning they've used leverage or debt to accelerate their wealth building process. Now, when people think about using leverage or debt, they often have mixed viewpoints. You see, debt can be both bad and good. It all depends on how it's used. For example, a consumer out there who borrows money to buy a car or a boat or a big screen TV is utilizing debt in a bad way. They're borrowing to buy a liability, and that liability takes money out of their pocket each and every month. Consumers can then get scared to borrow because they've borrowed in the wrong way. Investors, on the other hand, like you and I, we realize the power of borrowing and how it enhances our returns on our investments. We learn how to borrow as much as we can, as intelligently as we can, except we don't buy liabilities. We use borrowed money to acquire assets, and those assets put money into our pocket each and every month. We also realize that by investing in our education, which is our most valuable asset we have, period, and by learning how to strategically purchase the right type of real estate assets, we can begin to borrow and use leverage in a very powerful way that builds our personal wealth. So now that we understand that borrowing money is a powerful way to build wealth, let's take a look at just a few of the sources of capital that are out there that we can learn to raise. Now, there's pros and cons to each source of capital, but all of them are generally better options than tying your own money up in your deals. Now, the first source of financing, which is very common, is bank financing, which is great for properties that you'll hold long term. Then there's owner financing, which can be a good source of funding, and that's where the seller of the property actually becomes your bank. Another creative way to buy a property is to buy a property subject to the existing mortgage and leave the loan in place. Then there's hard money lenders who provide short-term loans for properties you plan on rehabbing and reselling. You might also establish a line of credit at a bank that you utilize to purchase properties. You might utilize credit cards to purchase a lower price property or to fund a portion of your deal. And of course, one of the best sources of capital that I'll teach you about in this video is private money. You see, there's individuals that you can borrow money from to fund properties that you might purchase, rehab, and resell everywhere. Private money right now, there's over 15.7 million millionaires in the US right now, and they're all seeking good rates of return on their money. In addition, there are many more people who are not millionaires who are also seeking a great rate of return on their money. Remember, Your lenders need you as much as you need them. It's truly a win-win scenario. Picture and imagine what it would feel like building your wealth for yourself by learning how to invest in real estate and at the same time helping other people, friends, family members, and other people in your community build wealth as well by helping them get a great return on their money. It's a win-win scenario because you benefit, you have more funding for your deals. You're also able to say yes to more investment opportunities that come your way. And therefore, you're more likely to gain control and certainty over your financial future. Now, private money is great because when you go to a bank, having good credit definitely helps you. But with private money, your credit doesn't have to be perfect when you're working with these types of lenders. In fact, they typically don't inquire about your credit at all. It's a relationship-based loan. And what matters most is learning how to present yourself and your deal to the lender. That's what matters most. So how do we do this? Well, I'm going to give you an overview of our process and the system that we use to find potential lenders. I'm going to show you how we create interest with those lenders and how we build credibility for ourselves, our business, and our deal. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about our process for overcoming any concerns they have, and then how we manage the relationship during the investment process. Now, please realize there's a lot to learn. So that's why I'm going to give you an overview and an introduction to the process, but don't underestimate and think that just because there's a lot of lenders out there, that they're just going to hand over $500,000 or $1 million to you like that. It takes time to learn and to practice and to leverage proven systems that work. Now, if you take the time to learn and to practice and leverage proven systems, then yes, you have the ability, no matter what your experience level is, to raise money. But at the same time, there is a lot to learn. You see, the quality of your real estate education is vital because you generally only get one shot with a lender. So let me break down a few of the steps right now. Step one is finding private money lenders. Now, there's a lot of different ways to find lenders. I found lenders at Chamber of Commerce meetings, at auctions. I've gotten referrals from lawyers and title agents. However, one of the best ways is to market to existing lists of private money lenders already loaning money in your area. For example, I and many of our coaching clients utilize private money lender mailing lists that are available. And instead of trying to network one-on-one with people, which is effective, but can take a lot of time, I prefer to market to people who are already lending money in the market, we're already buying in, and just establish relationships with them. Now, there are certain things you can do when marketing to lenders, and there are certain things that could definitely get you in hot water. So taking the time to understand all of these rules is important. We spend a lot of time with our coaching and consulting students, helping them understand what they can and can't do when it comes to their marketing, which can keep you out of hot water for sure. Now, the next step is to create interest with someone who could be a potential lender in your first conversation. So picture and imagine for a second that you're at a cocktail party and you meet someone who inquires about what you do for a living. Well, the first thing I always recommend to our clients is to not just describe what you do, which might be like, I'm a real estate investor, but instead describe how you invest in real estate. For example, let's say you were introduced to someone named John, and John said to you, what do you do for a living? Well, here's what I would recommend you say to create interest and to open up the conversation to discussing potentially investing in a real estate deal. So what I'd say is, well, John, I'm a real estate investor. My company buys all types of investment properties, and we work with other people in the area, just like yourself, who invest alongside us and into our real estate projects. You see, instead of just describing what you do, you've now mentioned a clear benefit to the other person, and you've opened up the door to a conversation about lending. Now, John or the other person you're talking to will usually at that point inquire further about what it is that you do and how lending works. Now, it's important to give you an overview of the other steps in the process, so I won't take the time to role play every part of this conversation like I do with our coaching students. However, it's important to know how I usually end the conversation and set up the next step of the process. The magic behind this question is, if they aren't interested, they'll usually refer you to someone who might be interested. If they say yes, well, great, then they're interested. What we do next is we set up a private money lender meeting, generally a couple days later. So what do we do next once we've set up the meeting? Well, before the meeting, it's critical to email them some very detailed information about you, your company, and the private money lending process. You'll be sending them an informational brochure that I call a credibility packet. The credibility packet I use is 18 pages, and it gives the potential lender a very detailed overview of the lending process. It has information about our company, about our business model, and ultimately it answers a lot of the questions that a lender might have and gives them a lot of confidence that you're a professional and you know what you're doing. Now, before I meet with the lender, I also recommend that you spend a few minutes researching them on LinkedIn or Facebook. And what you're looking for is things that you have in common that'll help you build a connection with the person you're meeting with. More specifically, I teach our students, look for FORD. And what FORD means is family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. When you can find out a little bit about their family, are they married? Do they have kids? It helps create a connection. When you learn about their occupation and what they do for work, it gives you insight as to who they are. And when you understand what they like to do for fun, what we call recreation, it only helps you find commonality and build trust and rapport in the conversation that you're going to have when you meet with them. Now, the D stands for dreams. If you can understand a person's goals, it's really going to help you make a connection that's going to lead to them making an investment. Now, the next step is the actual meeting itself, which usually takes about an hour. I have a very detailed outline I use to guide me through this meeting that has helped me tremendously over the years. And it's something that I've used to raise millions of dollars, and it's also something I've given to our students that's proven to help them raise millions of dollars as well. And so that's the outline I'm going to give you an overview of right now. Now, the first step of the meeting is usually 5 to 10 minutes just building rapport with the lender. If you've done your research before the meeting, you've probably found things that you have in common to discuss, which helps break the ice. Essentially, you should just focus on building trust with the lender by asking them questions about their profession, their family, and then discussing any common interests or common connections that you have. During this part of the meeting, you should just do more listening than talking. And you want to show genuine interest in the lender and their life. Remember, people do business with people they know, like, and trust. And the easiest way to create that trust is through building rapport and finding commonality. Now, during this part of the meeting, I teach our students how to cold read and assess the personality type of the lender so that they can use the right type of language that appeals to that personality type. However, that's a much more advanced concept that usually takes me a few hours to teach at one of our more advanced workshops. For now, it's more important to just focus on the basics. Now, the next part of the meeting is delivering the intent statement. You see, after spending some time building rapport, it's important to focus the meeting and give the lender confidence in you. We do this by utilizing a specific intent statement. The purpose of the intent statement is to give the lender an overview of what to expect out of the meeting and to make them feel more comfortable answering questions throughout the meeting. It's also important to get a commitment from the lender up front to making a decision at the end of the meeting. Let me give you an example of what this would sound like. If I were talking to John, I would say something like this. John, I appreciate you taking the time to meet with me. Obviously, you have an initial interest in private money lending, and that's why we're sitting down today. Now, John, I also want to be very respectful of your time, and that's why I've created a very detailed outline that we'll go through so you fully understand all the pros and cons of private money lending, which usually takes us about an hour. Now, John, I'll also cover my extensive educational background in real estate, the parameters that we look for in properties, how we find our deals, how we do our due diligence, how we underwrite our deals, and I'll also give you an inside look at our processes and our systems and our team that we use to operate this business. And when I do, it's going to give you a sense of confidence in our business model and who you're investing with. Now, at the same time, John, private money lending is not perfect for everyone. That's why I'm going to ask you some questions about how you're presently investing and the types of return that you're generating, so you and I can just get a sense of whether or not this is a good investment for you. At the same time, it has to be a win-win for both parties. And I think it's important for both of us to feel comfortable with each other, as the rate of return that we offer our investors is a really good one. And I know there's quite a few investors who reach out to me on a regular basis wanting to get involved. That's why it's got to be a win-win for both sides. You see, I just want to make sure that we have similar long-term wealth building goals. Also, John, please feel free to ask as many questions as you have as I go, because I want you to be fully informed and I want you to feel very comfortable with the investment structure. All I ask is at the end of the meeting, if you think the investment appeals to you, then perfect. We'll move forward from there and identify a specific property. And if it doesn't make sense, no problem at all. Fair enough? So that's an overview of what an intent statement looks like. And I tell our students all the time, every word you use in these types of meetings counts and could be the difference between raising $500,000 or $1 million or walking out of the meeting completely empty-handed. So the key is to give the lender confidence that you've spent the time to get educated in this business and that you have systems and a business model that you follow. You see, the last thing that a lender wants to do is invest with someone who hasn't spent the appropriate amount of time educating themselves on the business and the market and doesn't have systems in place to run their business. Lenders will know when you're just winging it. In addition, you want to know the value that you bring to the table, and you want to have confidence conveying that to the lender. Heck, you're offering a really great rate of return, so it's got to be a win-win for both parties. If you come across as an uneducated or desperate to the lender, they're not going to want to lend to you. Finally, and this is worth its weight in gold, one of my mentors taught me that anytime you have a meeting, you should get the prospect to pre-commit to giving you a simple yes or no answer at the end of the meeting. You see, the most common response that you're going to get from a lender when you're new is they're going to say, well, let me think about it. And that means you're going to be wasting a lot of time following up with all of these people. So by asking the lender to give you a simple yes or no at the beginning of the meeting, before you present the information, cuts off that option of them saying, oh, I got to think about it. It's something that's going to help you tremendously. Now, the next part of the process we call the discovery, because you're going to be asking questions about the lender's experience in real estate investing and lending and their experience with other investment asset classes. You'll want to discover what rates of return and what risks they're already incurring with their other investments. Essentially, this helps you just guide the conversation down one of 3 tracks, because you'll have a good understanding of whether this lender is new, that's a track, or they're moderately experienced, or they're very sophisticated. I emphasize this with every single one of my coaching students, because how you communicate the rest of the meeting will differ based on the lender's level of sophistication. You don't want to talk to a very sophisticated lender like you would to a brand new lender. This would be very costly for you. Now, another thing I find out during the discovery process is a little bit about their financial capability and whether they'd be able to fund an entire deal, or would the lender be closer to your minimum investment, which means you'd be talking about a second position loan. Now, also during the discovery process, you may be able to uncover some potential objections that you can preempt for later, and that's a key. Now, the next few sections are very important, especially if you're new, because you'll be giving the lender an overview of your company and discussing your buying criteria. When we're coaching new investors, this is an area we spend a lot of time on, role-playing, because we want to make sure that they're very confident in presenting themselves even when they don't have an extensive track record. You'd be amazed at how this helps our students approach their meetings with extreme confidence. In fact, we give our students an exact word-for-word script for how they present their company and their buying criteria. Our students lean on this script and the education that they've received and the systems they have placed and the team that they're building. And even though they may not have the experience yet when they're new, this will help them raise money because they understand the fundamentals of the deal. They understand how to describe their underwriting process, and they understand how to handle the lender's concerns that might come up during the meeting. Now, for those more experienced investors we coach, we show them how to present their track record in such a way that allows them to raise even more money at even higher LTVs, even with construction costs rolled into the loan as well. So what should you touch on during this section of the meeting? Well, the first thing that you're going to want to touch on is your educational background in the real estate industry and the time that you've dedicated to putting systems in place, the team that you've built and or that you're assembling, and the specific business model that you're utilizing. You'll also want to touch upon an area of the real estate market that you're focused on and your knowledge of that market. Next, you want to cover what types of properties you're targeting and what your buying or acquisition systems are for those properties, and what your step-by-step underwriting process looks like. Then you're going to want to give your lender a sense of how you do due diligence and what that process looks like so they have confidence in your education and thoroughness when you're evaluating deals. I actually encourage our coaching students to bring their due diligence checklist, the flow chart they use to analyze a deal, to their lender meetings and show them the underwriting software they use to evaluate properties. It just helps raise the confidence level of the lender with that investor. It's also at this time that you're going to want to address the lender's concern about how they're secured and what happens if something were to happen to you. This is an important concern or objection that lenders will always have. So it's important to convey to the lender how your buying formula and underwriting process reduces their risks. It's important to be upfront about these risks with your lender, and if I were coaching you, I'd advise you to address this concern head on because your underwriting process, your buying formula, and the value at which you're purchasing properties does reduce the lender's risk a lot. The next section I recommend you touch upon is your real estate investment track record. For students of ours, we show them how to take all of their past deals and their current deals and put together a professional one-page executive summary for each deal. And that makes the lenders feel a lot more comfortable with your track record and your performance. Now, for new coaching students, I always let them know they should utilize a property that either A, they're currently analyzing or doing due diligence on, or if the student is really new in their first few weeks of the program, I encourage them to use one of our properties as a hypothetical scenario of the types of properties they'll be targeting soon. I also let our coaching students know that the best place in the meeting to preempt possible concerns or objections a lender might have about their track record is at this time. In fact, I have very specific language scripted out for new investors to overcome the lender's concern about their experience that uses the hypothetical case study from one of our past deals. Essentially, this script goes through the financials of a property and does a really good job showing the lender that what really matters most is not necessarily someone's experience level, but ultimately what the investor pays for the property and the systems that they use to manage the construction and run their business. It uses numbers that are very clear and logical, and it works really well. The next section of the meeting is to walk the lender through the terms and the conditions. The thing I love about private money lending is all terms and conditions are negotiable, and so you can make them fit what will be ideal for your business. First, I recommend a 12-month term with no prepayment penalty for most residential properties, even though you probably won't need that long, unless it's really a sizable project or something like new construction. I also encourage investors to offer between 8 to 12% to lenders for their rehab properties. The other recommendation I make is to make monthly payments if you can, because what that does is instill confidence in your lender, and you're more likely to get referrals from them of other potential lenders while the deal is going on, or if you do find another deal, they're much more likely to fund it if they've been getting paid on a monthly basis. Now, if that's not feasible for you financially, then just roll all the payments to the back when you sell the property. It's your choice when it comes to the terms and conditions. Now, the next step is to walk them through the documents and protection. And what we do is we talk about how their money is protected. These documents include a promissory note, a trust deed, or a mortgage, depending on what state you're in, and how the lender is named on the insurance policy as well. You should also be prepared for some lenders who might ask for a personal guarantee, which is completely negotiable. Next, I walk the lender through the closing process if they're new so they feel comfortable. If the lender is experienced, I just tell them who we usually choose when we're closing escrow. The next section of our process is I like to cover the commonly asked questions that lenders typically have. This is where the magic happens. You're going to preempt and address the remaining concerns that lenders typically have. It's important to know what these common concerns are and exactly how to address them. Now, when we select new coaching students to work with, we provide them with exact scripting that covers all the common objections that they could ever get when they're meeting with a lender raising private money. Now, you're not going to address all the objections right here. What you're going to address is some of the most common ones, and that's going to give the lender more confidence in you, and then they're less likely to ask a bunch of questions at the end of the meeting. So a few of the questions I always take the time to preempt and address up front is things like, what if the house doesn't sell for what you think? I also address what happens if the market declines. I'll also generally address what happens if we go over budget and the property isn't profitable. And then I'll always address the one about, well, what if the lender needs their money back? Those are ones I hit up front. Now, there's a lot of potential concerns or objections that a lender might have that you should be prepared for, but you're not going to address them at this point. Let me give you an example. There'll be some lenders who will want to partner with you, and so be prepared for them to ask, well, I'd like to partner on this deal rather than just loan money. There'll be some lenders that want a higher interest rate. There'll be some lenders that want to change the terms and conditions significantly. So at this point in the meeting, it's now appropriate to gauge the lender's level of interest. So I'd recommend you say something like this. Hey John, if I were able to find a deal next week to put under contract, and there is one that I'm looking at, what I'd do next is I'd present to you our due diligence, and I'd also show you our underwriting on the deal so that you can understand your numbers. And if the numbers on the deal made sense and the math and how you're protected, from everything that I've presented, would you be interested and able to commit to funding that deal? If they aren't ready, I find out what concerns they might have and address them. If they are ready, then what I would do is discuss more specific financials with them about what sources of capital they'd be using. By the way, this is a great opportunity to take the time to educate your lenders about funding deals with a self-directed retirement account or to uncover other sources of capital they might have. Our approach to how we do this is really good, because we can often get a lender to fund an entire transaction or sometimes multiple transactions instead of being limited to funding just a portion of the deal with one capital source that they were thinking about. So I hope you've gotten a lot of value and insight into our process. Now, in the next video that's coming up, you're going to learn a few strategies and the systems we've used to find really good properties that can be bought below market value. Obviously, it's essential if you want to make any money as a real estate investor to know how to find good deals consistently. So this will be a very valuable video lesson for you. Hey, Than Merrill here, and welcome to part 3 of our 4-part Quick Start training that's going to show you how to reach your personal and financial goals quickly as a real estate investor. Now, if you remember from our first video, the first thing that we covered was the importance of building a systems-dependent business. In the second video, we discussed how to raise private money from lenders to fund your deals in the future. In this video, I'm going to discuss how to rehab and flip properties successfully. More specifically, I'm going to teach you our 7-step system for rehabbing properties without you having to be on the job site all the time. So you can take properties that look like this and turn them into this, consistently and profitably. As I go through this system, you're going to feel a sense of excitement and desire because you're going to realize that you can do this too. And then by getting educated and by implementing systems into your business, it could have a dramatic positive impact on your life. So let's first discuss why rehabbing is part of our business model and why I recommend it be part of your business model as well. Well, it's pretty simple. We wholesale and rehab properties to create profits in a relatively short period of time. We then take those profits and we reinvest them into real estate by buying rental properties that create a positive and consistent monthly cash flow that builds our long-term wealth. In fact, if you've ever seen one of our episodes on A&E's Flip This House, this is the area of the business the show focuses on. In fact, at any given time of the year, we have between 25 and 40 projects going on at once using the systems and the process you're about to learn. Now, when it comes to learning how to successfully rehab properties, the first thing that you'll love about this system is that you're not going to be the one swinging the hammer or doing any of the work yourself. You're not going to be working harder. You're going to be working smarter. That's because our business model is designed to leverage efficient business processes and systems that leverage contractors. And the contractors are the ones that are going to be doing all of the heavy lifting. Now, I'll show you exactly what this system looks like in just a minute. But first, let me give you a very important example that I believe illustrates why our approach to rehabbing properties is so successful and how we've been able to scale it to the level that we have. You see, I'm sure many of you have eaten at a McDonald's before. Well, whether you like the food or not, I think we can all agree that McDonald's has phenomenal systems and phenomenal business processes. If you're in a rush and you want to get a quick meal, you're going to get the exact same value whether you're in New York City or Los Angeles or Tokyo for that matter. I also know that McDonald's is the most profitable restaurant chain in history because of its business systems and processes. And that's why thousands of people, entrepreneurs who have wanted to start a business have invested over $1 million each to become a McDonald's franchisee. What they're investing in is the systems and the business processes that McDonald's developed to run the business. Now, those franchisees are not guaranteed to be successful, but they know they have a much higher probability of long-term financial success by investing in a proven business model versus just trying to go out there and figure it out themselves. You see, there's a massive difference between the systems and processes between this amateur's hamburger restaurant and the systems and processes that McDonald's has developed over the years that they've been testing and tweaking and refining their business model. So the reason I bring this up is simple. It's because it's an analogy about how I want you to think about your real estate investing efforts. You see, years ago, I decided I was going to take the McDonald's approach to building a real estate investing business. Instead of flipping hamburgers, I created systems and processes to flip houses. You see, the real estate investing business is just a series of different systems working together. We have marketing systems for finding deals, property acquisition systems for doing your due diligence on properties, systems for funding deals, systems for rehabbing properties. We have a system for managing the construction. We have a system if we buy and hold properties to manage the property itself. We have systems for selling properties and running the business, as well as systems for managing your employees and your team as you grow. You see, it's been my experience out there in the general public, when you talk to people, there's 3 kinds of people that want to get into real estate. There's a person who's been thinking, dreaming, talking about getting into real estate, but who's never really done much of anything besides just that. Then there's people who actually get in, but they take an amateur approach. And that approach is to learn by trial and error. And they have no process or system. And ultimately, a lot of those individuals don't succeed. And then at the top, there's professionals who spend the time to get educated and have learned to put great systems in place that they operate their business with. The great news is you get to choose what you want to be and the approach that you're going to take. You see, there's a massive difference between an amateur's approach to investing in real estate and a professional's approach to learning and investing in real estate. Imagine for a second that an amateur came across a house that looked like this, where there's the potential to make great money. The problem is amateurs who don't have an education wouldn't even know where to begin. So most would become fearful and ultimately they'd miss out on the opportunity because they just don't know what they don't know. Now, even worse, some amateurs would say to themselves, I don't need any help. I'm just going to wing it and figure it out along the way. Well, you know the problems with that type of mentality. And you also know what the outcome would be. It wouldn't be good because there's just too much risk to taking that type of approach. The problem with an amateur approach is they could easily underestimate the repair costs. They could have trouble getting contractors to take them seriously. They could easily end up selecting a bad contractor or a contractor who potentially takes advantage of them. Because an amateur doesn't know how to run the business and doesn't know how to create a detailed scope of work, the project could easily be designed wrong or could take too long, and delays would be inevitable. Just when you think it can't get any more dangerous for an amateur, well, consider this. Most amateurs have no clue about what legal documents they got to have in place to protect themselves, and they sure don't know how to manage the entire construction project. So what's a better approach? And what approach do most professionals take? Well, as I walk you through our 7-step rehabbing process, you'll begin to develop a sense of confidence because you'll see all the different ways that you could avoid making costly or even catastrophic mistakes like an amateur would. You'll also begin to feel a sense of excitement because you'll see why this will help you save so much time and lead to consistent and predictable outcomes. So the first step in learning how to rehab properties is to get a general knowledge of the overall construction process. Now, you don't have to know how to do all the work yourself, but you do want to know the steps, you want to have an idea of the costs, and you want to know how to manage contractors and how long it should take. The best way to accomplish this is by taking a multi-day class on rehabbing properties or construction management that's hands-on. The second step is having a system for estimating repairs correctly and quickly when you're doing your due diligence on properties before you make your offer. So you're going to want to develop a system for doing this so you can walk through a house and in literally 30 minutes or less have a very accurate cost of repairs, because that number is essential to making sure that you make the right offer. You see, the challenge is you have to be able to do this both accurately and quickly. And obviously, if you underestimate the repair cost, well, you could overpay for the property, which could cause you to lose money on the deal. If you overestimate the cost, your offer might not be competitive and you might lose the deal. So it has to be right on. Now, you also have to be able to do this in 30 minutes or less on most residential properties, because the reality is not every offer you make, even if it's accurate, is going to get accepted. So if this takes you too much time, you just won't be able to make enough offers each and every month. So what I did is create a system that would not only help you make accurate estimates, but also in a very short period of time. I wanted to create a system that was also so easy to follow that even someone with very little to no construction experience could follow it. You see, I started hiring people in my business to replace myself, and I knew they weren't going to have the same experience I had, but I still wanted them to be able to walk through a property, analyze the repair estimate very quickly, and give me the information to help me make the offer. So what we did is we designed an easy-to-use software where you could walk through each section of a house, and just by answering questions using the software, it would lead you to an accurate repair estimate. For example, imagine you came across this house and wanted to estimate the repair cost quickly. What you do with our software is go room by room, simply answering questions, and the software helps you build a repair estimate. Let me give you a more detailed example. Let's say you walked into this bathroom that obviously needs work and wanted to get a quick estimate on the cost to take this bathroom and turn it into something like this. Well, what you do is you click on the bathroom, and then the sections of the bathroom that potentially need to be replaced would appear. Then you'd ask yourself the next question. Does this vanity countertop need to be replaced? Yep, sure does. So you just check it off on the repair estimating software again. Then within a minute, you have an estimate to replace parts of the bathroom or the entire bathroom itself. You then progress through all other parts of the property, and within 30 minutes, you have a detailed repair estimate. Then from there, you could print up this repair estimate and use it to negotiate with a seller or an agent or a bank. You could also use this to raise money from a potential lender. Earlier I said you were going to feel a sense of confidence, and then you'd begin to see why having systems will help save you time, it's going to reduce your risk, and ultimately get you to your financial goals quicker. You're also beginning to see how professionals approach this business, and how we use a repair estimate to help us make an intelligent offer. Then when we get the property under contract, we use this repair estimate as part of what we present to a lender to start raising money to complete the deal. Now, the next step we take as professionals is before we close on the house, we're going to develop a detailed room by room scope of work using a system which will list out everything that needs to be done to the property, along with a list of every single material we want the contractor to use. This saves you time, money, and solves a whole list of problems amateurs have. So the first thing we use the detailed scope of work for is to get bids back from contractors very quickly. Because think about it, the contractor doesn't have to think about what materials have to go into the house. You'll just print up multiple scopes of work and leave it at the house or email it to the contractor, and you don't have to go out there and meet every single contractor that is going to give you a bid. This saves you a massive amount of time. Plus, the contractor is going to get you the bid back faster because they really just have to go out there and price out their labor because the materials have already been chosen. Second, you'll be able to compare two bids from two different contractors much easier because you already know the material cost and can now just compare their bids on labor. A lot of amateurs make costly mistakes right here because they can't compare bids easily between two different contractors. For example, one contractor could give you a quote on a completely different set of materials from another contractor. And an amateur doesn't know the difference per se in those two bids, and it creates confusion and it can cost the amateur a lot of money. Now, another reason to have a very organized scope of work is because you as a professional can make the contractor's life so much easier, and it's going to result in you saving a lot of money. In fact, we often save 10% on a project just because we're organized, we know what materials want to go in, and we make the contractor's life easy. The amateur, on the other hand, relies blindly on what the contractor says it should cost to fix up the house. By the way, how long does it take a contractor to spot an amateur? And what's going to be the result of that? Exactly. You see, what happens is the contractor usually gives an amateur a bid for labor and materials, and the amateur doesn't even know what materials are going into the house. And speaking of materials, is there a very real chance that the contractor is going to maybe mark up the cost of those materials as well? Just a little bit, right? By the way, we don't have an issue with a contractor making a profit. Not at all. We just know that being educated ensures that everything is more transparent and fair. In fact, I'm sure you can see right now that your education is worth tens of thousands of dollars just when it comes to this one area of real estate alone. You see, you don't want to leave it up to the contractor to end up designing your house using very low-end materials that could cause you to overpay and have the house sit on the market for longer than you'd like. You see, we choose very specific materials we want based on the price point category we know the house will end up selling in. So then we just go get labor quotes the majority of the time. Let me visually illustrate what happens to an amateur who has very little education, no systems, and has never learned the proper process. Their rehab ends up looking like this. Here is the before, and here's the after. And yes, this is the after picture with low-end materials, bad design and all. How many of you think that this kitchen looks like it needs to be rehabbed again? Would you believe me if I told you that the amateur overpaid on this project as well? Well, you're right, he did. On the other hand, professionals go into each deal having learned a very specific process and feel confident because they have a system for doing many of these projects at once if they want to. And the visual difference alone is starkly different when you look at the outcome. You see, over the past 14 years, we've done hundreds of profitable rehabs. Along the way, we've been documenting and continuing to build our database of past successful rehab projects from the very beginning stages of the business. You see, I decided I wanted to have the McDonald's of flipping real estate, and I wanted to get the same outcome every time we rehabbed a property. The challenge is there's different price points of properties in a city, and you don't want to use the same materials in let's say a rental type property versus something that's above median income price point. So what we did was create template material packages for each of the 4 different price points of properties that we work in. That way, we know exactly what materials we use in each type of property price point, and so that we'd never underfix or overfix a property based on the price point. So let's take a quick look at a case study of one of our rehab deals so you can see these systems in motion. Picture and imagine yourself finding a home that looks like this, that needs a lot of work. Now imagine having the exact same systems and having learned our process, so now you can confidently rehab a property and know exactly how it'll look when it's finished. Now picture having learned how to find and build a team of skilled people who do all the work without you out there having to do any of the work on the job site. You see, how we approach a rehab is we have a database of all of our past projects broken down, and we take each section of the home and we create a template. Then, to build a scope of work, we go pick an area of the house to start. For example, let's pick the kitchen. First, we look at the size of the kitchen and the layout of the kitchen, meaning is it a U-shaped kitchen, an L-shaped, or a galley kitchen? Then, based on the price point of the home, we pick the appropriate template that we've used in the past on a different home that we're going to reuse again. For example, we're going to pick kitchen 13 in this case study and take a look at that. When we open it up, it has all the materials that we've used, from the cabinets to the appliances to the countertops to the flooring, lighting, fixtures. It has the brand, the color, the sizes, where we order the materials, the SKUs, and the links to reorder the exact same materials. We then just give this to the contractor and say, hey, these are the materials we want to use. Give us a labor-only quote. And what we have is a very detailed process that any contractor can follow. Do you think this makes the contractor's job a lot easier? Absolutely. Does it save you and them a tremendous amount of time? Of course it does, because they're not spending half their day walking through Home Depot with their shopping cart looking for certain things. Now, on top of that, not only do we know the material cost, we know exactly what we paid in labor last time to install that kitchen or that bath, so we don't overpay on labor either. Now, stepping back into the process, once we choose the contractor that we're going to work with, we just give them our scope of work with each template, with all the materials, and we know with absolute confidence exactly what this home's gonna look like, regardless of the contractor that we work with. Now, a few minutes ago, I showed you a case study of a house. I also told you that by learning this process and getting educated, your confidence would increase because you would know the outcome before you even rehab the home. Let's take a look at the end result on this new house, our case study, that I mentioned a few minutes ago. Here's the template we used from a past project that we're going to use on this kitchen, on this project. Now look at the end result of using a template within a system. The kitchen the template was designed from is above, and the case study kitchen is below. We used the exact same materials from the template. And here's the same kitchen template used in 2 other properties as well. As you can see, a professional knows the outcome before he or she starts. Now, if you remember, I said earlier that you would see the difference in the approach between an amateur and a pro. I'm sure many of you are now becoming excited because you're starting to see those very clear differences. In fact, how much money do you think learning our 7-step process would be worth to you just in construction cost savings and efficiencies alone? When you learn this process, you're going to be able to see why we can help you save 10% on your construction costs. In fact, think about what a 10% savings on just one rehab property that, say, requires $50,000 in work would be worth. Then apply that to how many properties that you might desire to do over the course of the next few years and your career. Now let's discuss steps 4 and 5 in our 7-step process. You see, you're also going to need systems for finding great contractors and getting bids. Years ago, I realized that in order to go from a deal here and there to several house flips a month, we are going to need great processes for finding, interviewing, and pre-screening contractors. So our contractors who want to work with us fill out an application. We then verify their license, their insurance, their workers' comp, and then we interview the contractor using our contractor interview system to make sure they're going to be a good fit to work with us. Now, step 6 is to make sure you reduce your risk and that you're legally protected. The last thing that you want to do is find a great deal that has the potential to make great money and then have something go wrong on the job site. And you end up exposing yourself to legal liability and you put your own personal assets at risk. The reality is that there's risk when people are working on your job site. They're going to be up on roofs, they're going to be working with dangerous equipment, and there will be accidents. I've seen a few investors out there literally lose everything that they've worked so hard to build over the years because they have missed this important step. So what do? We have 6 critical documents we use in this step. We have an independent contractor agreement that we sign with the contractor. We also make sure we get an indemnification insurance agreement filled out as well. We have a very specific payment schedule that we agree upon with the contractor so he or she knows when they're getting paid and what milestones of the project have to be reached before they get paid. We also agree and sign the scope of work template. We get a W-9 tax form. And finally, we'll have a contractor lien waiver signed when the project is complete. Now, the final step to a successful rehab is managing the construction process. Now, this step alone, there's a lot of details because this is when the construction is ongoing. But essentially, I'll give you a 500-foot overview. We break this process up into 3 phases, and we have software, checklists, and technology that we use to manage these 3 phases. Phase 1 is before the project starts, and that's when we make sure the scope of work is done and that the construction schedule is set and that everything is clearly outlined so that when the subcontractor starts and finishes, the next subcontractor is ready to go and there aren't any delays. Doing this can save you thousands of dollars on each project. The second phase is managing the ongoing construction and making sure that the contractors are following your system and meeting their milestones. And the third phase is when the project is wrapping up, and this is critical. This is when you're going to be reviewing your detailed punch list that you use to make sure everything has been completed and that nothing is missing. This is also when you'll have the contractor sign the final lien waiver. Now, at our 3-day rehabbing boot camp, we take a full day and a half to walk you through just this step and these 3 phases in the final step to manage a construction process. So there you have it. That's an overview of the 7-step rehabbing process that we've used to successfully flip literally hundreds and hundreds of houses, and that our students have used to flip thousands and thousands of houses. Now, earlier I said you'd see the clear difference between an amateur's approach to the business and how a professional approaches the business. The great thing is that once again, you have the choice in your approach. You have the choice to make. Do you want to take an amateur's approach, or do you want to follow the professional approach? You see, the reason our students have so much success is simple. We took 14 years to create these systems, and they get to leverage them from day one. Our software, our project templates, our checklists, our forms, our contracts, every single thing that we use to manage 25 to 40 projects at a time. And it's amazing to see the results our students produce utilizing our system. In fact, it blows me away when I see people doing the quality of work on their first and second project that took us years to get to. You see, we have students all over the country from all different walks of life and from all different backgrounds doing the same quality work we do just because they follow the systems we've created. Imagine just for a second what you'll be able to accomplish for yourself when you leverage our systems and put our processes to work for you. You'll be able to create systematic, dependable, and predictable results every single time. Finally, the next video in this series is the last, and it's going to be tremendously valuable for you. You see, we've covered a lot of ground in these videos so far. However, in the next video, I'm going to simplify everything. I'm going to put myself in your shoes and share with you 4 things that I would absolutely focus on over the course of the next 6 to 8 weeks in order to set yourself up for long-term success as a real estate investor. These 4 things that you'll discover are exactly the same advice that I would give to my son or daughter if they approached me and wanted to get into real estate. So whatever you do, don't miss this video. Hey, Than Merrill here, and welcome to the 4th and final lesson in our Quick Start training series. You know, as a real estate coach and a national speaker who speaks in front of tens of thousands of people annually, I get asked a lot of questions. The most common question I get is, what does it take to achieve long-term, sustainable success as a real estate investor? Well, in this video, I'm going to share with you exactly what I would do if I were in your shoes to increase your probability of success. In fact, this is the same advice I'd give to my son or daughter if they were to ask me that very same question. First, long-term success is measured in so many different ways, and the definition is going to be slightly different for everyone. For some people, it's purely financial. How much does this business make? And how much can it make me each year? Or it might be, how do you utilize real estate to ensure that you have consistent income that gets you to a retirement goal? For others, real estate is about utilizing what you learn to be able to leave a job you don't necessarily enjoy and become your own boss, control your own time, and find a career path that you truly enjoy and that you wake up excited about every day because you're working on your dream instead of someone else's. But there's one thing I think we can all agree upon, and that's success is the ability to live a more fulfilling and purposeful life through the freedom of pursuing your desires and achieving your goals. After all, life is too short not to pursue your dreams and your goals. So what I'm going to share with you are the 4 key principles, or what I call the pillars, of becoming a successful real estate investor that are essential to achieving long-term sustainable success in real estate. You know, it's funny, there's a lot of people out there in life who talk about all the things they want to achieve. They talk about wanting a better life. They talk about wanting to make more money and improving their finances. They talk about wanting to improve their health and their relationships. But you know what they do? They just talk about it. They don't actually do anything. So the fact that you're watching this video and you've already committed to your goals tells me that you're a lot like me and that you're not willing to settle for less than what you can be. You're not willing to hope that things turn out okay or that everything will somehow magically change for the better. In fact, if you really think about it, change is automatic. You don't have to work on change. It's a given. Your body's going to change as the years go by, isn't it? It's going to change one way or another. Your relationships are going to change either for the better or possibly for the worse. Your business and your career are going to change as well. Change is a given. Progress, however, is not. You see, everyone knows that real estate has proven to be one of the best and most secure ways to make money throughout history. However, to progress and truly have long-term success as a real estate investor, it requires that we have these 4 pillars to have a stable real estate investing business. It's pretty simple to visualize. It's like a table, and if you're missing one of these 4 legs and you put any weight on it, the table is going to tip over. And like a table, to become successful as a real estate investor, you have to have all 4 pillars. The first pillar of building a long-term sustainable business is acquiring and having access to specialized, focused knowledge within the industry. You see, there's 2 kinds of knowledge. There's general knowledge that we often acquire in school. Then there's specialized knowledge that we learn within a trade or industry that we pursue. And this specialized knowledge is learned best when you immerse yourself within the industry. If you really think about it, this specialized educational process is as old as humanity. How we mastered anything, finances, crafts, ideas, businesses, skill sets, is usually what happens is we become an apprentice of a master. And for years of our lives, we would commit time to being around that person day and night so you could see and feel all the little distinctions that make them so good and so masterful at what they do. You see, today, people have no patience. They want it all right now, and they're not willing to put in the time. People try a few things, and if it doesn't work, then they jump ship and they're on to something else. People out there, they want the easy button, yet we know no easy button exists. You see, one of my mentors told me many years ago that to master something, it's just a process. It's an educational process where over the course of a few years, you learn and then you apply. You learn and then you apply. And when you're applying what you learn, you start seeing the results and it becomes exciting. It transforms you. It develops a certain amount of passion in your life. What I've noticed is that the most successful real estate investors have just spent more time doing just that. They've spent more time educating themselves and they've chosen and created routines to do so consistently, and they develop a love for this learning process. What they do is they take a class or they take a workshop, they gather that information and they apply it. Then they take another class or a workshop and then they apply it. And the secret is that there is no secret. It's finding a proven educational process created by successful investors who have a proven track record for developing people into successful investors. It's then studying the mechanics of how they market and how they find properties, how they analyze and perform due diligence, how they raise money for their deals, and how they manage the construction process, or if they're holding the property, how they manage the property management process for their rentals. It's how they market and sell their investment deals, and it's studying their investment philosophy and how they make decisions. It's understanding how these successful investors minimize risk, how they build a team, how they manage people within that team, and how they lead that team to success. Then it's studying how they run their business, how they develop and implement systems, and how they transition from working in their business to working on their business and stepping out of their business and putting people in place so that it continues to grow and prosper without all of their time. You see, taking someone to lunch and picking their brain, it can be beneficial. You might get a few tips, but an hour lunch is not a proven and specialized educational process. Watching a few videos on YouTube or joining a forum, it can be helpful, but that's thinking that there's an easy button in real estate. I hate to break, there is no easy button. It's just a specialized educational process where you take structured classes on different topics and then you apply what you learn. Then you take another class and you apply it, and you repeat that process over and over and over again. The second and equally important component or pillar of creating long-term sustainable success in real estate is implementing proven systems into your business. In fact, in one of the previous videos, I discussed one of the best pieces of advice that I got from one of my mentors early on in my investing career. What he said was, Than, if you're going to start a business, the most important thing you want to do is build your business from day one as if you were going to sell it. And what that requires is building a systems-dependent business. And that'll allow you to step away from all the day-to-day tasks, and the business will still run without you. Remember, a system simply helps you get a specific business process done in less time. And in real estate, we have many different things that we do and many different business processes. For example, we prospect and market to find good deals. We have a process for how we analyze and perform due diligence on properties. We have a process for raising money. We have a process for getting that funding for those deals that we do, and a process for finding good contractors and building a good team. We have a process for managing the construction process instead of doing the work ourselves. We also have a process for finding prospective tenants if we're keeping rental properties and for selling properties if we flip them. So how did my team and I develop the systems we use today? Well, over the course of 14 years, we documented everything, and we were extremely diligent about keeping track of what works and what doesn't work. For example, when we execute a direct mail campaign and it brings in a couple deals, what we do, if it's successful, is we document it, we break the process down into a series of small and easy steps that you can follow, and then what we do is we created templates and marketing pieces and charts and checklists for other people to be able to execute that campaign, so I didn't necessarily have to do all the work myself. Then I took those documents, which I call standard operating procedures, and I would hand them off to somebody else. For example, when we rehab properties, we have a scope of work that I hand to a contractor. I have documents and a process that our agents follow who do some of the marketing for us. We have virtual assistants who execute a lot of the work, or if I hire someone on a part-time or full-time basis, this is the information that I give them to be successful. So instead of me doing the work, they're the ones executing the work. Then we simply repeated this process throughout our business time and time again. We document it, we test it, we tweak it, we hone it, we put a system in place, and then we measure the progress of that system. This is why today, at any given time, we're working on between 25 and 40 real estate projects at a time. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm still involved with the business, but my time commitment now is significantly less than when I started. The bottom line is that my team and I, we've invested 14 years. And if you think about it, that's tens of thousands of hours of time, testing, tweaking, figuring out what works and what doesn't work, and we built a business model that essentially you get handed. And then what you do is you follow that business model to reach your goals that much faster. What it does is it gives you a sizable competitive advantage over other investors in your area. You see, what we do with our coaching and consulting students is we literally hand them our playbook of systems for exactly how we built and how to build a successful real estate investing business step by step. Our coaching students don't have to reinvent the wheel because it's already been created for them. Think about that for a second. You can step into a business model and leverage what took me freaking 14 years to build, and you don't have to go through that learning curve. That's why it's going to cut your learning curve dramatically. That's why our students have such an advantage, and why every single week I'm blown away when I see the quality of work that our new students are executing on their projects. In fact, many of these new students are doing the same quality of work on their first or their second or third project that literally took me and my team 10 years to figure out. That's the beauty of having a good educational process and good systems to follow. Now, the third pillar to building a long-term sustainable business is having a community of other investors that you can learn from, who you can share resources with, and who you can do business with. You see, in business, it's not just what you learn, It's not just having proven systems in place, it's also important to have other peers around you who are high achievers as well. You know, there's a saying that we end up becoming a product of the 5 to 10 closest people that we hang around with the most. So if you want to improve your financial life, what you'll do is you'll start creating new relationships with people who think and operate at a different level. This new circle of friends will inspire you, they'll push you, and you'll end up becoming the best version of yourself. You know, it's funny. Some people out there think someone's crazy to invest $50,000 or $100,000 a year to join an exclusive country club. What most people don't realize, though, is that people make that investment, not necessarily for the golf or for the tennis. They make the investment because of the people who are at the country club that they're going to develop relationships with. They make that investment because they know it's going to put them in the company of other high achievers that ultimately lead to a much higher return than the annual dues. Likewise, in the real estate industry, the value of building a community of investors around you is significant. First, when you have a group of other investors around you, it creates a mastermind effect that's tremendously beneficial. When you're part of a community of other investors, you can learn from them. You can learn what's working, what's not working. Essentially, you're leveraging their time and energy of their efforts, which unlocks opportunities for you that you might not have pursued. For example, when one of your peers, let's say they're buying properties directly from a bank, and when they share with you their techniques for what they're doing, well, you can implement those same strategies and you benefit from that relationship. Or maybe someone within the community is making a lot of money buying 3 and 4 unit properties and converting those into condos. And they teach you the process for what they're doing, and therefore you implement it into your business, and all of a sudden your income grows. You see, when people are sharing best practices, you're learning what's working well, but you're also learning what doesn't work. And so you don't have to make those same mistakes, and that can save you a tremendous amount of time and reduce your risk significantly. Second, when you have a community of investors around you, it just makes things easier to build your team. You see, a lot of success in real estate is based on the quality of your education and the quality of team members that you surround yourself with. From the many different types of contractors that we use, to real estate agents, to property managers, to insurance agents, to lenders, to attorneys, to CPAs, and the many vendors that we use. These are all essential people that you want to put onto your team, and the best way to build that team is through your peer community of referrals that you get from other investors. For example, within our coaching community, I see it all the time. I see team members who are referring other professionals or other team members to other investors. And what that does is it just gets you out of the startup phase that much quicker. You see, when you know exactly who you're going to work with based on the experience of other people, it's just that much easier to build your business. Now, the third benefit of having a community around you is the biggest. And that's because you have other people that you can do business with. You see, within our community, I see people who are lending money to each other, doing transactions. I see people that are teaming up and doing joint venture deals together. And it's a beautiful thing when you have a community of investors all throughout the country, because you might have a deal, let's say in Dallas, but you live in Tampa. Well, if you can have a community to reach out to of other investors who do what you do, you now just profited from that transaction. Obviously, you get it. You're smart. You understand how having a community of investors around you can create a clear competitive advantage for you and your business, and it would cut significant time off your learning curve. That's why it's such an essential pillar to creating a long-term sustainable business. So whether you apply to become part of our coaching community of thousands of investors around the country, or you try to go out there and build your own community, either way, I absolutely want you to understand the importance of having a community of real estate investors around you. Now, this brings us to the fourth and final pillar, which is the power of having a coach. Coaching is essential. I wouldn't be where I am today had I not first found a coach when I was new to real estate investing. Having a coach simply increases your probability of long-term success. You see, the reason a lot of people out there who don't have success in business, it's just because they don't have a coach who can provide that strategic advice along the way as they're growing the business. Imagine for a second you had a friend who had a goal to climb Mount Everest, the tallest and most dangerous mountain on earth. And let's say a friend approached you for advice and they said, you know, there's a couple guides out there who've been to Everest many times before. They know the way, they know the terrain, they know how to pack. But I think I'm just gonna try to save some money and just go at it alone. So what would you advise your friend to do? Well, I imagine you'd give them the same advice that I'd give any friend of mine. And you'd let them know that it's probably not the smartest thing to do to try to just go out and climb Mount Everest alone. In fact, it's crazy. It would be an absolute suicide mission. Well, it's funny because that analogy happens all the time in business. I see people who will start businesses with no knowledge of the industry whatsoever and hope to go out there and make some money before they get educated. The reason I bring this story up is that's exactly what I did when I started my very first business many years ago. In fact, I was in my early 20s and I invested in a restaurant. I knew nothing about the restaurant industry. I figured I could make some money in the business and then I'd learn how to run a restaurant. Well, ultimately what happened to me is I ended up getting crushed with that business. And it was probably one of the best learning lessons that I personally ever learned. Because when I got into real estate, I did exactly the opposite. I said, you know what? There's risk in real estate. There's a lot of potential, but I need to find someone who can coach me and give me strategic advice, and I need to learn the business first. Otherwise, I'm not going to make any money. And that's why having a coach is so valuable, because I've done it both ways. And I can tell you, in this industry, there's a tremendous amount of potential. The money that you can make is, your income isn't capped, but the risk isn't capped either. And that's why we have to learn how to run this business from other people. We have to learn how to invest from other people who've already done what we do. Then, once we've learned, we're going to go out there and apply those lessons to actually make money in real estate. This is why I believe so strongly in the power of coaching and mentorship. I know it's worked for me, and I also know it's worked for thousands of our students around the country. It's also the reason that business coaching has become so popular. In fact, according to a recent survey, 70% of the CEOs who run Fortune 500 companies are currently getting business coaching. These are smart CEOs who run very successful companies, and they realize the value of having someone hold them accountable and the value of someone who can bring a much needed outside perspective into their day-to-day work. You see, the top in any industry don't view their need for coaching as a sign of weakness. In fact, it's the exact opposite. It's an indication of a sophisticated awareness of oneself. To become the best, you have to constantly surround yourself with people who have a different and more experienced perspective in the industry that you're pursuing. You know, over the years, I've had many coaches, and I've absolutely loved the process of improvement. Because what happens when you get coached, you start to see results, and this process becomes addicting. And this is why I believe so strongly in the value of education and the value of the coaching process. And that's why still to this day, I get coaching in many areas of my personal and business life. What a coach can do is they can look at your business from the top down, and they can help you make small changes that changes the entire trajectory of your real estate investing career. A coach is going to push you. They're going to push you when you need it, and they're going to make the process more enjoyable, and ultimately you'll realize that the coaching process is fun. For example, the reason why so many people out there don't follow through on their New Year's resolutions is because they don't have someone who can help hold them accountable and who inspires them and makes the process fun. If you had someone like that in your life, would you stick with your goals more often? You probably would. You see, coaching isn't about being better than you. Coaching is about the transfer of knowledge and the transfer of strategic advice from one individual to another. Let's look at a few examples. Phil Jackson
is one of the winningest coaches of all time. And what you don't know, or what you might not know, is that Phil Jackson coached both Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, two of the best basketball players of all time. What's amazing is if you've ever seen an interview with Michael Jordan, he always gives a tremendous amount of credit for his career to his coach. Well, it's no different in real estate. When it comes to real estate, when you have someone who can give you that advice, it just makes your life easier. And what that coach does is they draw out the best in you and they help give you that outside perspective that's going to save you a tremendous amount of time. You know, when I got in the real estate investing industry, I knew I needed a coach. And the reason is I had a restaurant that had failed because I didn't have a coach. Yet I still had a little bit of skepticism. What I realized is that skepticism was just simply fear. You see, I was fearful of repeating the past. I'd already had a business that had struggled, so why was real estate investing going to be any different? And that's what was holding me back. Well, I knew that if I wanted to start a successful business, I'd have to set that skepticism aside, and I'd have to learn to embrace the coaching process. Otherwise, I knew I would not accomplish anything in this new industry. I realized that I had to get in the game, except this time I wanted a coach by my side. You see, there's a significant amount of risk in real estate that you have to manage. And you have to make decisions constantly, and the mistakes can be large. And that's why having a coach is going to be so valuable for you. Because we can take what I've learned in 14 years and condense that down and cut your learning curve tremendously. So when it comes to coaching, you just have to ask yourself this question. If you can condense time and build a successful business faster, what's that worth to you? What's having more time freedom worth to you? What's having more time with your kids and your family and the ability to create lasting memories and a legacy worth to you? What's it worth to you to have more financial peace of mind? For a lot of people, and at least for me, that's priceless. So how can I help you? Well, I've dedicated my life to helping people just like you, entrepreneurs who have the desire to improve themselves and who know there's more for their lives both personally, professionally, and financially. This is my calling. You see, when you discover your calling, the thing that you were put on this earth to do, it's really a wonderful feeling. And you'll be compelled to share what you know with others. My calling is simple. It's to help people find and live with more purpose. It's to educate people financially and help them become successful real estate investors. My calling is to take a person who is nervous or has fear or who isn't getting the results they want and fix it, to change it, to transform them so they can go out there and rock and roll and achieve all of their lifelong goals. You see, our coaching program was designed to maximize your potential as an investor and help you reduce risk significantly. The reason why is we provide you with all 4 of these pillars that are essential to building a business. First, we have a detailed educational curriculum complete with training classes that you'll take over a period of time. In fact, this is a very extensive list of classes that we have. Second, we provide you with the systems and tools and resources and software that we've created, tested, and automated over the past 14 years. Third, we provide you access to a community of thousands of real estate investors around the country. And of course, the 4th pillar is coaching. And when you put all of those together, that's what's going to help you be successful. Now, I do want you to know we're selective about who we accept into our coaching programs because we only want to bring in the right type of students who are truly dedicated to improving their lives through this process. Every week, we get numerous applications. So let me share with you some insights on the criteria that we're looking for from applicants. First, we're looking for people who are coachable, pretty simple, and that can follow a proven process and understand the importance of implementing systems into their business. Second, we're looking for people who know what they want and why they want it. And ultimately, people who are committed and serious to making this work and who are motivated beyond just making more money. We're looking for individuals who love to learn, because we know that if you love the learning process, you'll have the success that you want. We're also looking for people who have a long-term vision, because patience will be rewarded when it comes to investing in real estate. It's going to take time. It's going to take some effort. So we're looking for people who understand this. Now, at the same time, it's going to be some of the most fun and enjoyable work that you've ever experienced, because you'll be learning and growing tremendously and working towards your financial goals. We're also looking for people who understand that we can accelerate your wealth building process by utilizing leverage and credit to acquire quality assets. You see, what we've found is that when someone fits these criteria that we've established, the probability of long-term sustainable success goes up. We've found that when someone matches this criteria, that's when the magic happens. Finally, I know this chapter of your life is going to be very fun and exciting for you. And I believe today is going to be the day where you can put a mark on your calendar of an event where you and your financial future and life took a giant leap forward. I look forward to hearing about your successes and meeting you in person.